Here today to tell all of you about my near-death experience. It happened quite a few years.
Melissa Carter's heart flatlined on a hospital table in Asheville, North Carolina. But that was only the beginning. As doctors scrambled to revive her, Melissa was catapulted into a realm beyond time, where her entire life was laid bare and a soul blueprint revealed her true purpose. What she saw shattered everything she believed about life, death, and destiny. This isn't just a near-death experience, it's a journey through the fabric of the universe itself. Hold on a minute, if you have not subscribed to our channel, do well to subscribe, like, comment and share videos of this channel, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell.
My name is Melissa Carter. I'm 41 years old, and I work as a yoga instructor in Asheville, North Carolina. I've been teaching for over 10 years, and before that, I spent most of my 20s and 30s working through a mix of retail jobs and part-time gigs, trying to find my footing in the world. Asheville is a quiet, spiritual town in the mountains, and for the most part, it suits me. I like the stillness, the trees, and the way the seasons move here, slow and gentle. I would say I've always been a gentle soul. Sensitive. A bit of an overthinker. I love deeply, I cry easily, and I care maybe a little too much about things I can't control. My friends used to joke that I was an old soul. I never really fit in with the fast pace of modern life. I've always been drawn to things that help people heal. That's what led me to yoga and meditation. I wasn't raised religious, but I believed there was something more, something beyond the physical. I used to say, I don't have a religion, but I do have faith. I believed in kindness, in energy, in a quiet sort of universal love, even if I couldn't quite explain it. Before my experience, though, I was deeply struggling. About a year before my NDE, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune condition that drained every ounce of energy from me. I was constantly fatigued, in pain, and slowly losing the strength to do the things I loved. Teaching yoga became harder. I would push through sessions, go home, and collapse in bed. My body felt like it was breaking down, and emotionally, I was unraveling. I became withdrawn, anxious, and afraid. I started feeling like I was disappearing from my own life. The worst part wasn't the pain, it was the isolation. People around me didn't understand what I was going through. I looked healthy on the outside, so they couldn't see how badly I was hurting. I felt like I was fading. Some nights, I would lie awake staring at the ceiling, wondering if my life had any real meaning. I asked questions like, why me, or what's the point of all this pain? I wanted answers, but none ever came. I didn't know it at the time, but I was carrying so much sadness. It was in my bones, in my breath. I kept trying to pretend I was okay, but inside, I was exhausted, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And then, everything changed. One day, something happened that turned my entire world upside down. Something I never expected. Something that would not only change my body, but open a doorway into a completely different understanding of life itself. It started with a flare-up, worse than anything I'd experienced before. My autoimmune condition had always come in waves, but this time it hit me like a storm. I woke up one morning barely able to move. Every joint in my body ached, and even the weight of the blanket felt unbearable. I couldn't eat, couldn't think straight, and something deep in my gut told me this wasn't just another flare. It felt different. More final. My heart was racing even though I was lying still. I remember trying to get out of bed and nearly collapsing on the floor. I crawled to the bathroom and threw up from the pain. I had been resisting going to the hospital for months. I hated medical environments. Everything felt cold, rushed, impersonal. I'd always believed I could handle things naturally, that if I breathed deep and stayed calm, my body would find balance again. But this time, that belief cracked. I was terrified. I called my sister, Rachel, and told her something was really wrong. She came within 20 minutes and took me to the ER. I remember the bright lights, the beeping machines, the sharp smell of antiseptic. Everything felt too loud, too fast. Nurses asked questions I couldn't answer. I kept drifting in and out, struggling to stay conscious. My body was trembling, and I felt both freezing cold and burning hot at the same time. They told me I was in some kind of severe autoimmune crisis, my organs were inflamed, my blood pressure was unstable, and my heart rate kept spiking. There was this moment, I don't think I'll ever forget it, when they were trying to insert N4, and I looked up at the ceiling and thought, this might be it. Not in a panicked way, more like a quiet knowing. A deep stillness settled over me. I was too tired to be afraid anymore. They moved me to intensive care. I remember my sister squeezing my hand and trying to smile, but her eyes were filled with tears. Everything around me started to blur. The beeping machines sounded like they were underwater. My vision dimmed, and it felt like I was being pulled backwards, away from the world. My chest felt tight, like something inside me was being unplugged. I don't remember my heart stopping. I don't remember anyone saying she's gone. What I do remember is the sensation of sinking, not in a scary way, but like I was being gently lowered into something soft and silent. The noise of the hospital faded completely, and I was no longer aware of my body. There was no pain, no fear. Just silence. And then, something else. Something I'll never be able to explain fully. When I woke up in the hospital, I was confused. I didn't understand where I was or what had happened. There was this heavy, quiet feeling in the room. My sister was sitting by the bed, holding a cup of coffee, her face pale and tired. She looked at me and burst into tears. She told me I'd been gone, no heartbeat, for nearly 4 minutes. The doctors were amazed I came back without brain damage. I should have been scared, but I wasn't. I felt calm. Different. Like something inside me had been reset. At first, I didn't connect my recovery with anything that happened during those minutes I was gone. But the changes started quickly. My body began to heal faster than expected. The doctors said the inflammation in my organs dropped dramatically within 48 hours. My vitals stabilized. My pain decreased. I was discharged a week later, still weak, still tired, but nowhere near as sick as I had been. Over the next few months, I noticed more shifts. I still had symptoms from time to time. Tiredness, the occasional joint flare, but they didn't stay. I wasn't stuck in bed for days anymore. My body felt like it was cooperating with me instead of fighting me. My energy returned slowly, and then with more strength than I'd had in years. I even went on a short hike one afternoon, something I hadn't done in over 5 years. One morning, I remembered something very specific from the other side, something about changing my blueprint. At the time, I didn't fully understand it. But I recalled choosing to release a part of my life plan that included ongoing suffering. I had been shown that chronic illness was something I agreed to before I was born, as part of what my soul came here to experience. But in that space, where time didn't exist and choices were purely energetic, I was told I had learned enough. I didn't need to carry that pain anymore. It wasn't a magic switch. I didn't wake up completely healed, and I still have hard days. But the difference is, now those days don't define me. The illness doesn't run my life anymore. I feel stronger, more balanced. I trust my body. I trust myself. And I feel this quiet resilience, like a strength I brought back with me. It's hard to explain this to doctors or even to friends. But I know what I experienced. I know what I released. And I know that healing, true healing, is as much about spirit as it is about flesh. Something changed. And I carry that change in every cell of my body. One of the most surprising things I learned during my near-death experience was that life is not as rigid as we think. Before this, I believed everything either happened for a reason or was totally random. I didn't understand how both could be true at the same time. But when I was on the other side, I saw my life from a much wider view, and the message was clear: we come into this world with a blueprint, a kind of soul plan, but it isn't set in stone. We have free will, and how we move through life is shaped by the choices we make. I saw my own soul blueprint, like a beautiful weaving of light and events. Some parts of the pattern were fixed, certain people I would meet, lessons I had to learn, key turning points, but most of it was flexible. It shifted depending on the decisions I made, big or small. The universe would gently nudge me towards certain experiences, but I was never forced. I always had a say. One clear example was my decision to delay the surgery that eventually led to my near-death experience. For over a year, I'd been warned by doctors that something was seriously wrong, but I was afraid. Afraid of hospitals, of being cut open, of everything going wrong. So I waited. I put it off again and again, hoping things would improve on their own. During that time, my health declined sharply, and I suffered deeply, physically, mentally, emotionally. When I was shown this part of my life in my review, it wasn't in a judgmental way. No one told me I had made the wrong choice. It was more like, here's what happened, and here's how it affected your path. If I had chosen to go in for surgery earlier, the outcome might have been less painful. The experience would still have been part of my blueprint, but I would have walked through it with more ease. By delaying it, I added more suffering. But I also gained insight, compassion, and eventually, transformation. That's when I realized how powerful our choices are. Yes, life has key moments that seem destined, but how we arrive at them and how we move through them, that's up to us. We are not puppets. We are co-creators. We are shaping our lives moment by moment. Since coming back, I no longer ask, why is this happening to me? Instead, I ask, what am I being shown? What choices do I have here? And that shift alone has changed everything. One of the most powerful parts of my near-death experience was the life review. It wasn't like watching a movie or flipping through a photo album. It was more like stepping directly into memories, but with a twist. I could feel not only what I had felt in those moments, but also what others had felt because of me. It was eye-opening, humbling, and emotional beyond anything I've ever experienced. I was not alone during this review. There was a presence with me, gentle, loving, full of understanding. I don't know if it was a guide, an angel, or part of my higher self, but it made me feel completely safe. There was no judgment, no harshness. Only clarity and truth, shown with deep love. We began with small, everyday moments. One scene showed me as a teenager, ignoring a classmate who was always picked on. I never said anything mean, but I also never stood up for him. As I watched, I felt his pain. His loneliness, his fear, how invisible he felt. And I felt my own coldness at that moment. I had no idea my silence hurt that much. That scene stayed with me. Then we moved to brighter moments. I saw myself in college, comforting a friend who was going through a breakup. I had sat with her for hours, just listening. I hadn't thought much of it at the time. But now, I could feel what it meant to her. The warmth, the relief, the way she felt seen and held during a dark time. That tiny act had created a ripple of healing that went much further than I ever knew. I also saw how I treated my family. I watched scenes where I was impatient with my mother, rolling my eyes or walking away when she just needed a little attention. Those moments stung. But then I also saw the love I had shown, cooking her meals when she was sick, laughing with her at the kitchen table. The guide beside me gently said, "Nothing is too small. Every act carries energy." Through all of this, the biggest lesson was how deeply connected we all are. Every word, every gesture, whether warm or cold, leaves a mark. I realized how powerful we are, just by how we show up in daily life. And I also saw that love, even in its smallest form, is never wasted. That review didn't make me feel guilty, it made me want to do better. It showed me that every day is a chance to be a little kinder, a little more present. It reminded me that how we live matters more than we think. After the life review, I was taken to what I can only describe as a space of deep intelligence and peace. It didn't look like anything physical, but it felt vast, like standing in the middle of the universe with every star around me holding knowledge. That's when I was shown what my guide called the soul blueprint. To me, it appeared as a glowing, multidimensional web, like strands of light moving and shifting. Some threads glowed brighter than others, and each seemed to pulse with meaning. I didn't understand it at first. It looked beautiful, but confusing. My guide gently said, This is your soul's design, your chosen lessons, your agreements, your growth path. At first, I was stunned. Chosen? I asked in disbelief, you mean I picked this life? The illness? The pain? The struggle? The guide responded with deep compassion, yes, your soul chose these experiences, not as punishment, but for expansion. Each challenge is a doorway to deeper understanding, to greater love. And you were never meant to face them alone. Then I began to see patterns, moments from my current life tied to similar experiences from past ones. I saw myself in a different time, different body, going through emotional abandonment, just like I had in this life. The theme of loneliness and learning self-worth was not new, it had been echoing across lifetimes. That shook me. I had always felt a deep sadness that I could never explain. Now, I understand why. The blueprint wasn't fixed like a contract written in stone, it was alive. Some events were like checkpoints, strong pulses in the web that were destined to occur. But how it got to those points, and how I reacted, was up to me. I had freedom to choose, to shift paths, to grow faster or slower. That part brought me comfort. I wasn't trapped, I was learning. I also saw the people in my life from this higher view. Some souls I recognized instantly. My mother, my best friend, even people who had hurt me. Each had a role in my growth, and I in theirs. We had agreed to meet, to love, to challenge, to help one another evolve. It was like we were all actors in a play, but the emotions were real, the lessons deep. It wasn't easy to accept. I had moments of resistance, asking, why would I choose such pain? My guide's answer was simple, because your soul is brave. You wanted to remember who you really are through contrast. That blueprint changed everything. It made me see life not as a series of random struggles, but as part of something bigger, a soul's journey home. After seeing the soul blueprint, I began to understand something else, something that surprised me even more than the idea that I had chosen my life. It was the balance between free will and destiny. My guide explained that while certain moments in our lives are planned before we come to Earth, like big turning points, key relationships, or even major losses, how we respond to those events is completely up to us. It's like a map, my guide said. Some destinations are marked, but the roads you take and how long you stay at each stop, that's all yours. That made me pause. I had always thought life just happened to me. The pain, the struggles, the missed chances, I had believed they were either bad luck or punishment. But now, I saw how much choice I had really been given. One example stood out clearly. When I was in my 20s, I lost my fiancé in a car accident. We had been planning our future together, and in one night, it was all gone. That loss shattered me. For years, I thought it was the worst, most unfair thing that had ever happened. I carried bitterness, even anger toward God, questioning why it had to happen to me. But in this higher space, I saw the moment again, this time from the soul level. I saw how he and I had made an agreement before we came into this life. His early departure was meant to be a major turning point for me. His loss wasn't meant to break me but to open something in me that had been closed for a long time. And it did. After the worst of the grief passed, I began volunteering at a hospice center. I found myself drawn to people who were grieving, who felt lost, who had questions no one else could answer. That pain had carved out a deep empathy in me. A gift I didn't see at the time. It wasn't the event itself that shaped me. It was how I responded to it. That was the key difference. I could have stayed angry and shut down, and for a while, I did. But when I chose to soften instead of harden, that choice changed everything. My guide told me that every soul carries the power to choose love, even in the middle of heartbreak. That's where our greatest growth happens, not when life is easy, but when we still choose to love, even through the pain. So yes, some things are destined, but they are not punishments. They are invitations. And what we do with them, that's where our true power lives. At some point in that timeless space, my guide and I came to a quiet pause. It wasn't spoken out loud, but I felt it clearly, there was a choice before me. I could stay in this place of peace, this love that felt deeper and more complete than anything I had ever known on earth. Or, I could return to my body. The idea of staying was so tempting. There was no pain here. No fear. No loneliness. I felt fully known and unconditionally loved in a way that made every ache I'd ever carried dissolve. I thought of how tired I had been in life, tired from fighting illness, from grieving, from never quite feeling like I fit. Here, there was rest. But then, like a soft ripple through still water, I felt something else. It was faint at first, like a memory not yet fully formed. I saw my younger sister, Elise, sitting at the edge of her bed, holding her phone, waiting for a text from me. I saw her face, how lost she looked. Then I saw an older version of her, still struggling, still searching, and in that moment, I remembered a promise I had made before I was born. I had promised to be her anchor, her mirror, her guide. More images came, people I hadn't met yet. A girl in her 20s sobbing in a hospital room, someone I hadn't met but somehow would help. A man in a support group who would finally speak because I was the one who listened. I realized there were pieces of my life still left undone, not in a stressful, pressured way, but in a purposeful one. My story isn't finished yet. I still had more to give. More to experience. More to learn. Tears filled my eyes as I looked at my guide. I want to go back, I said, my voice trembling. I think I'm supposed to. My guide didn't argue or try to persuade me either way. They just smiled gently, like they already knew what I would choose. And with that, I began the journey back. Coming back into my body was nothing like drifting off into the light. It was jarring, like being dropped into a too small shell. One moment I felt light, expansive, and free, and the next I was squeezed into something tight, heavy, and aching. The pain hit me immediately, sharp, loud, and raw. My chest felt like it was on fire, my throat dry and sore. I could hear machines beeping. Someone was calling my name over and over, but their voice felt far away, like it was coming through thick water. I opened my eyes slowly. The lights in the hospital room were too bright. My vision blurred as I blinked, trying to make sense of where I was. It was as if I had been gone for years but had returned to a place where only seconds had passed. My body felt foreign. Breathing was hard. Every movement took effort. It was like trying to move through wet concrete. The difference in vibration was overwhelming. In that other place, everything had been weightless, pure emotion, pure thought, pure connection. Back here, everything felt dulled. Dense. Cold. Even the air tastes different. Heavier. There was no more constant hum of love around me. Just machines and quiet voices and the sharp awareness of physical discomfort. I couldn't talk right away. I could barely move. But I was aware. I knew I had returned for a reason, even if I couldn't explain it yet. I remembered the feeling of that other realm, and a deep sadness washed over me. I missed it already. I missed the love. The peace. But underneath the sadness was something else, purpose. A quiet knowing that I hadn't come back by accident. The nurses told me I had flatlined for almost a minute. My doctors were baffled at how quickly I was stabilizing. I didn't tell them what I had experienced. Not yet. It felt too big, too sacred. All I could do was rest, and slowly, over the next few days, begin to piece together how I would carry what I had seen into the life I had returned to. The days and weeks after returning home from the hospital were some of the strangest of my life. My body healed quickly, quicker than anyone expected, but I was not the same person who had gone into that hospital room. My muscles remembered how to move, but my soul didn't quite know how to fit into my old life anymore. Physically, the chronic pain I had battled for years was drastically reduced. I still had moments of discomfort, but they came and went like passing clouds rather than living storms. I no longer woke up in agony or ended every day in tears. It was as if something heavy had been lifted from me, like my body had been rewired on some deeper level. Emotionally, I found myself feeling everything more intensely. Joy felt deeper. Sadness, too. But I wasn't afraid of emotions the way I used to be. There was a strange calm beneath it all, like a soft current holding me steady no matter what came. I cried more easily, not from weakness, but from recognition. Beauty touched me more. People's pain registered instantly, even when they tried to hide it. I could feel what others felt, sometimes before they even spoke a word. It was like my heart had grown ears. Spiritually, everything opened up. I started seeing flashes of light around people, especially when they were speaking from their hearts. I heard thoughts that weren't mine, soft whispers of guidance, not intrusive, just present. In dreams, I visited the same peaceful realm I'd left behind, and often woke up with clear insights I couldn't explain. At first, I didn't know how to talk about these things. I kept them to myself. When I did try to share, even with close friends, I got looks of confusion or pity. "You just had a near-death experience," one of them said gently, "of course you're feeling weird." But this wasn't just weird. I wasn't the same woman who went into that hospital. My name was still Melissa, but my spirit had been cracked open, and something new had come through. The biggest moment of realization came one afternoon when I was walking in my backyard. I looked at a tree I'd passed 100 times and suddenly saw light moving through it, like it was breathing. I stopped and just stared, overwhelmed by how alive everything felt. The grass, the wind, even the silence, it all felt sacred. That was the moment I knew, I couldn't go back to who I was before. I had come back for a reason. And even if the world didn't understand what I'd been through, I had no choice but to live by the truth I now carried inside me. Not long after I returned home, I began noticing strange patterns, little things that felt too perfectly timed to be coincidence. At first, I brushed them off. I told myself I was just looking for meaning in the everyday. But the signs kept coming. And they started to speak in a language I couldn't ignore. It began with numbers. I would glance at the clock, and it was always 11:11 or 2:22. I'd wake up in the night and see 3:33 glowing on the bedside clock. At the grocery store, my receipt would total $44.44. I didn't understand it at first, but deep down it felt like someone was gently tapping me on the shoulder, saying, "You're not alone." Then came the animals. One morning I was sitting outside, thinking about whether I had imagined everything that happened during my near-death experience. Just then, a red cardinal landed on the fence a few feet away from me. It stared right at me and didn't move for over a minute. Something about the moment felt deeply familiar, almost like a wink from the other side. The next day, I saw another cardinal in a different place. And then another. 3 cardinals in 3 days. It felt like a message, and I whispered aloud, "Okay, I'm listening." To test what I was feeling, I started asking for signs in threes. If this is real, I'd say, "Show me a white feather today," 3 times. And sure enough, they would appear. Once on the sidewalk, once stuck to my windshield, once floating across my path as I walked. It never failed. I also kept a journal. Anytime I got a strong feeling, a dream, or heard a lyric that pierced my heart, I wrote it down. Over time, a pattern emerged. Themes would repeat, like reminders: trust, you are safe, keep going. The messages weren't loud. They didn't shout. But they were clear and kind and always arrived when I needed them most. Spirit had found a way to speak. I just had to learn how to listen. And the more I paid attention, the louder that quiet language became. Looking back now, I understand that my near-death experience wasn't just about me dying, it was about me finally waking up. Before all this, I lived most of my life on autopilot, chasing achievements, worrying about how I looked to others, trying to manage pain I didn't fully understand. But dying, stepping beyond the veil and touching that light, changed everything. It peeled away all the noise and left only what truly matters: love, connection, kindness, and growth. Life isn't about getting everything perfect. It's not about avoiding pain or stacking up success. It's about learning to love through it all. It's about choosing to be present, even when it hurts, and trusting that what we face, every joy, every heartache, serves a greater purpose. We are here to grow, to wake up to who we really are beneath the surface. I used to think I had to do something big to matter. But now I see the sacredness in the small things: a kind word to a stranger, listening with your full heart, forgiving yourself when you fall. Those are the moments that ripple outward into eternity. Those are the seeds of change, not just for your life, but for the world. If I could tell anyone reading this just one thing, it's this: you are never alone. Even in your darkest hour, even when you feel forgotten, you are deeply loved and supported. There is a plan, one that your soul helped write, and everything you're walking through is part of that beautiful unfolding. Yes, life can be hard. But you are stronger than you know. And every step you take, even the messy, painful ones, moves you closer to truth. Closer to home. Death taught me that love is not something we earn. It is what we are. It's the fabric that holds everything together. So be kind to yourself. Listen to your heart. And remember, everything is for your awakening.